first, I guess, real practice, and gosh knows how long, training a couple of new pieces. How'd it go?
Practice was good. Same, great energy, good vibes. Obviously, one of the few things that are going to be different. Evan's back. Spacing looks like different things like that. Touched on those things. Spacing with James. Obviously, everybody knows spacing with me. But the energy was great, especially coming out of the break for us to come in there and be sharp, right? Like, typically it's kind of like a Christmas break in high school, or like a Thanksgiving break in high school. You would think it'd be like that, but when you have guys who like those, like this, is good to have the energy and locked in.
You look up like post All-Star and you realize, man, there's 2 months of the season left. Like, how does it feel? Like, how
To be honest, I'm really just worried about the 5 and 7. To be honest, that's kind of been the whole focus and the whole thing coming back from break is like, hey, this is a tough stretch coming up. You know what I mean? Obviously, with quality level of opponents, but also just a 5 and 7 off the travel of flying the LA trip, coming back to Cleveland, flying back to LA, flying back here to play, then fly to Charlotte, fly to OKC, to come back. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much where our mind has been as, like, make sure we're locked in and ready to go, because this isn't no easy stretch. You can look up and be in bad shape right out of the break, so we got to stay locked in. I haven't even got to the fact that it's
You mentioned that Evan's back. We've got to see now James with Evan in his first practice. Obviously, it's the first one, so there's not a whole lot to decipher. But what do you hope to see from that pairing?
I think just Evan continue to build up what he did last year. And obviously early last season. I think this year he was more of a downhill. Right before he got hurt, he was downhill. Right? I think now him being able to do that, but also being able to be elite in the half row with James, elite in the pocket, and obviously at the rim. I think those are the 2 biggest things. And James, one thing about James too, not just his passing ability and getting guys the ball, but like the battery power, right? Like being able to be able to give Evan and still that confidence. And similar to what we built on last year, but at another level, right? So I think being able to see that happen in real time, and it's not going to be perfect right away, but understand that, hey, this is what it's going to be, what it's going to continue to be. So we're definitely excited.
There are only 27 games left for you guys for this season. Do you have a goal in mind for how you want to finish the regular season?
Handle this 5 and 7, and we'll go from there.
How do you maintain what Jarrett's been doing while also working Evan back into the fold?
I think Kenny and them have done a great job even last year, kind of staggering the team, kind of like myself and James. I think Evan and I getting back to playing the club, kind of how we've been doing, and then J.A. and Ev, I think we really found something. I mean, take away James. J.A.'s been phenomenal for Lord knows how long, right? But I think when you add James, it's just like another level to that. So I think kind of pairing me with Ev, pairing J.A. with James, and kind of going about that way.
James got some headlines with the concept of loyalty is overrated last week. How much of that do you think is just he's being more honest than maybe some other guys?
Yeah, I think it's real, right? I think as a sports fan, I'm a diehard Mets fan, right? Would I love for Jacob deGrom to be here? Yeah, but now that I have a unique situation where certain situations, it's not always, it's not always that like that. So for him to be honest with you guys and to the world to kind of give that answer, I respect that. At the end of the day, this is a business. You've seen, I saw on Twitter, like, you forget, Isaiah Thomas played his heart out, you know what I mean, and they did come up back with Boston, right? So it's both sides, and you can't blame a guy for, wanting to maximize his opportunity, maximize life-changing money for his family. You know what I'm saying? But on the flip side, it's that weird side in sports where it's like there's business, but there's also the concept of like, hey, I want to be here forever. Like there's always that with every athlete. I don't know his exact experience, but he's worked on other teams. All I know is pretty much what you guys know. But I do know there's certain things that can kind of skew that, in this world. Not just speaking on him, but as a whole in sports. So I really respect the fact that he was honest. I think a lot of guys relate to that. I think it also gives fans a unique insight on like, hey, there's so much love here for sure, but there's also things that can kind of get in the way.
And how aware are you guys? Darius, I didn't know he was traded in Joe. How aware are you guys of that side that you guys get traded in?
For sure. You look at my situation in Utah. Like, you go from being the 1 seed, and the next thing you know, it's like that. Like, it just happens. DG is the same thing. There's so many. You look at the Jimmy Butler situation, the James situation. There's so many situations in other sports, right? It's it's so fragile. Everything is so fragile. One day it could be great, the next day it could be like that. And I think the biggest thing is you controlling what you can control and kind of going from there. And like I said, I really respect the guy like James going out there at his stature, being able to say what he said at that point.
What does he add to the practice session?
Just the mentality aspect. I think we're not going to say it's 5 for 5, right? You know what I mean? But I think from what he sees, ways that we manipulate things, and we didn't get into it too much today, but I think you kind of have to feel it with them too, right? They kind of have to have a feel. We'll have practices coming up after the stretch we have, a few days off in March, right? So we'll have days to go over these things. I think first you got to see it, but with him, it's not much being said right away. He sees it, he feels it, and then he assists.
Do you feel like it's almost like scratching the surface a little bit of what you guys can, contribute and be after having a practice like this and not being able to practice due to the schedule before the break and then finally?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have a good film, such you have a good practice, I think it's definitely something that we want to utilize. But I think also too, like, we got to get out there. Yeah, I mean, we got to get out there and see. We went 3-0 into the break, yeah, but no disrespect to the two teams we played, out of the 3, like, they're not contenders. You know what I mean? So like, let's keep that under our, wrap our brain around that and say, hey, like, it's an important stretch coming up. How do we handle it? If we go 5-0, great. But how do we handle that? We go home 5. How do we handle that? Split it. Like, you know what I mean? So you can't split a 5-game stretch. But that's kind of where the mindset is at, and then we
You and James have showed great chemistry through 3 games. Now that you've had some time to think about that stretch, are there areas where you think you guys' chemistry can improve some?
Yeah, I think there's always, you're never perfect, right? I think there's definitely, we haven't even gotten to playing 2-man game together and what that looks like, right? It's been James and J.A. with me space, right? James and Sam with me space, or vice versa, me handling in James space, or one of us off the floor, right? So I think as we build, like, you'll start seeing that as well. But I think the biggest thing now is we found something that works. We're going to stick with that, build off it, and then kind of tap into it as these 20-some-odd games we have left.
How do you feel like Jalen handled his first All-Star weekend?
Like a pro, he left right after the game. I was very impressed. I stayed the whole damn weekend, my first year. And it was in LA, so credit to him. Like, he went back home, got his rest. But in the game, you saw, like, he plays one way. He plays hard. He's picking up full court. He's doing all the things. I wish he had some help out there. He was rebounding, he was passing, he was doing everything. But I think for him to see that joy, still be there, to embrace that moment, and then also be like a pro, like, hey, I need to get out of here and get ready to get back to this 5 and 7 stretch. Speaks to the person he is, but speaks to him just embracing the moment.
Donovan Bryant had a quote that was like, leadership is lonely.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys added Dennis Schroeder, you obviously added James Harden, 2 guys that are known to have a locker room voice. What does that do for you to not only know that you're the leader of this group, but to have added voices that are willing to hold teammates accountable on the court and off the court?
I think it's huge, right? I think, coming from where I started my career, right, where probably the average years in the league is like 7, right? Like, you know what I mean? And I was probably, me and Royce O'Neal, probably the 2 youngest guys on the team. I've seen it. I came into it with guys like James, Mike Conley, Rudy, Joe, right? Like so many different guys, Ricky Rubio. So you understand, you see, all right, this is why they pick their spot, this is how they approach their team. So I bringing that here was great, but now, you have a guy that's been here longer, 17 years, or I think it's 17. Dennis has been on different teams, he's seen in different areas. I think for me, it allows me kind of just to sit back, and allow things to kind of unfold. And also, it gives guys a different voice too. Like, instead of it just being always me, which I'm not saying you get annoyed, but after a while, it can become a lot, right? So when you have Evan hearing from James or Dennis, or J.A. or Matt, so it's definitely great for the group. And then when Kenny comes in and brings his voice, it's like fresh. I think that's definitely something that would be great.
One thing that stood out outside looking in on All-Star Weekend was Obama sitting courtside. What was that like for you to be able to interact with him?
So I'm fortunate enough to have a relationship with President Obama, and I didn't really realize he was courtside until Jokic almost ran into him. But I think when I saw him, just being able to see him and speak to the First Lady, who I've never met until that moment in person, I think it's something that's always special, you know what I mean? And, as a black man in America, to meet a family like that, to be around a family like that is such excellence and greatness. And, for them to continue to be in spaces that we're in is like the coolest thing. And he's talking to me, like, we've golfed together, and he's talking to me about my games. And I'm like, you're really watching what's going on. Like, that's pretty special, right? And I think out of all the things I've accomplished in my career, I think the one thing that's gotten a certain people in my life like excited was that moment. Like they didn't care about 71, they didn't care about the playoffs, they didn't care about signature shoe. Like they cared, but when that moment happened, it was captured on video. Like that was the biggest thing. And that just shows the level of influence he has in our world.
What is the origin of your relationship?
We know some of the same people, and that's kind of how we.
With everything that's happened with you the past couple of weeks, with trade, Super Bowl, All-Star game. Yeah, and the past couple of days felt like a good mental break more than anything.
Yeah, kind of just sitting back, and even taking today when we're done with you guys, we're going right to the house, and laying down. Right, you gotta understand that too much is given, much is required. And hey, at the end of the day, like it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, but it's time to get back to it.
All right, thank you.